what the purpose of this panel is so often I think it can be very easy to slip into seeing Christian Science in really small terms. Even if you're a lifelong Christian Scientist, or if you've been studying for a number of years, I think this is something that we constantly have to do, is think in a much bigger way about what Christian Science is, because it's so easy for it to just slip into being defined as just a religion, one of many. You know, these people are Christian Scientists, those people might be Baptists, those people are atheists, and that introduces just a sense of separation between people, you know, these human labels. And just thinking about this idea of Christian Science in such a bigger way, you know, for me, I love thinking about just like these are spiritual universal laws that we're studying, and that everybody has access to. It's not just that, you know, oh, well, you have to be a member of the Christian Science Church in order to demonstrate these ideas. No, these are spiritual ideas that are universal, that anybody can put into practice in their lives and see demonstrated. So we have our panel this morning that are going to be sharing from their own experiences, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves really quickly. Christian, do you want to start?
As she said, Christian. My name is Christian. I was born in the Congo, but I live in Norway at the moment.
My name is Patricia Brugioni, and I live in Chicago, and I'm a Christian Science nurse and travel the world, and yeah.
My name is Rebecca Salo. I'm currently in Bloomington, Indiana, doing my master's in horn performance, but I also have an undergraduate degree in electrical engineering.
Excellent. So my first question for you all is, why are you all Christian Scientists? You know, at some point in our lives, and maybe it's kind of an ongoing thing, you know, we make a decision, you know, if Christian Science is for us, and maybe it's, you know, one point in time where it was a healing or experience, we're like, yes, this is definitely for me. For others, it might just be sort of this ongoing just sense of gratitude for what Christian Science has brought into our lives. So why did you all choose Christian Science, and why are you all a Christian Scientist?
Great question. I was born in a Christian Science family, Christian Scientist family in the Congo. But I like to say that I made Christian Science my own when I went to a Christian Science camp called Arc-en-Ciel. I moved from the Congo when I was 13, and when we moved, my dad found this camp and told me, Christian, do you want to go to Arc-en-Ciel, to Switzerland? In my head, I thought, well, I'm 13, 2 weeks without parents and traveling by myself. Who doesn't want that, right? So I flew to Switzerland, and while I was there, I felt a sense of love that I'd never felt before. The community there was just beaming with light, as Fujiko just mentioned earlier. And when I went back home, I felt as if my feet were not touching the ground. That's how deep it was. And after that, reading Science and Health stopped kind of being a punishment for my parents to do. But it was actually something that I just myself wanted to pick up and read, because I just wanted to know what that love was and what that truth was. And since then, Christian Science really became a very core part of my life.
Excellent. Thank you.
Well, for me, it was an interesting question, like, why am I a Christian Scientist? Because it wasn't really a choice for me. It was really a seamless sort of thing. It was definitely a revelation. And so I didn't grow up in a religious family, and didn't grow up like quote unquote believing in God, or wasn't interested in organized religion. But I had a lot of struggles. I struggled with alcoholism and eating disorders, and just a lot of just mental issues and stuff like that. And so my experience, I tried a lot of different things, was suicidal and all of that sort of stuff. And then I got to a point in my life where I was done. I was done with trying things, but I was also done with trying to end my own life. I was honestly done. And in that place, I started seeing, as Fujiko Science said, light. I started seeing light everywhere and feeling connected to everything in the universe. I did not know what was going on, and I was trying to talk about it, And people were like, I had my boyfriend at the time was like, have you thought of writing? Yes, I've thought of writing. But I wanted to share it, but I didn't really have a context. So it was a real window experience. It was a breakthrough. I had an experience that, walking down the street, living in the Tenderloin in a hostel, it was as if someone were standing right behind me, and this voice said, "This is what the world looks like without fear." And then something came and removed something from my heart, and I saw a light, more just everything bathed in light. If I'd had the context, I would have said, I'm seeing the kingdom of heaven on earth, I didn't have that, though. I had nowhere to put this experience. So it was just this mountaintop experience, a summit experience. And then a year later, I ended up getting sober, and I did some preparatory steps of honesty, humility, surrender, yielding, and then that prepared me for Christian Science. So when I started studying, when I finally got the book, when I finally got this amazing book, it was like finally having a conversation with the teacher. Like if a teacher was by your side and was like not talking and showing you things, like showing you around but not saying anything, it was like finally having a conversation with that teacher. And because when I had that revelation, I honestly couldn't sort out when stuff from the world started kind of coming at me. I couldn't figure it out, and I just felt like I got sucked back in. And so when I started studying Christian Science, it was like, okay, here's the structure, here's how to work it, here's how to, be a spiritual lawyer and, really start to like work it. And so, so that's why I'm a Christian Scientist, yes.
My story is a little bit more similar to Christian's. I was raised in Christian Science, but I think I really started to make it my own towards the end of middle school and high school. I attended Cedars camps growing up, and I had a lot of growth there at camp. I think one healing in particular that was really meaningful to me was as a staff member, and this one really showed me the power of Christian Science and the power of truth, and that it does heal. I had been bitten by a brown recluse, and within a matter of a week, was completely healed from that and saw complete freedom. And that was just really meaningful to me. It was a time that I could really dig into Christian Science and understand better my relationship to God and see it demonstrated in a very practical and tangible way. And it really meant a lot to me. And just as I've grown further from that experience, Christian Science always has a logical answer for everything. And with my engineering background, I like to have logical answers to things. And I really appreciate that Christian Science can have an answer, and we never have to accept anything for granted, and that we can go to our pastor and find the answer for ourselves. And that's what's kept me with it beyond that, because it has the answer. It's something that I can find for myself, and it's something that I can see demonstrated in everyday life.
And what would you all say are things in your life, whether they were experiences or situations, that led to the most growth in Christian Science for you? And whoever wants to start, just jump in.
Well, I'll jump in. It's always been some of the most challenging situations for me, I think, that have made me grow the most in Christian Science. The healing I mentioned at camp was a challenging time, and it made me grow quite a bit. As I've gone to college, I studied abroad for a year, switched career paths. All those things have really made me grow more in Christian Science. And every time that I 100% decide to really commit myself to it and handle a situation through Christian Science is when I see the most growth. And even if it's just a small situation, it's always, when I take that very firm stance of, yes, I am going to handle this through Christian Science, and I'm not going to let anything else come in and try to dissuade me from that, and just jump in 100%. That's when I see the most growth.
For me, I like to say that it's the time I spent in London, because I did my bachelor degrees in London. And I like to tell myself that my time in London was similar to the 40 years march that the Israelis did, because I was there all alone in a new world, and you have so much things that you can do. You have so much pressure coming to you from all kind of angles. And at the beginning, for example, you had these, let's say, people telling you, well, if you don't join us to go clubbing or other stuff, you won't be able to have friends. And I personally, I don't really feel comfortable going to clubs, although I love dancing. That's my African heritage. I told myself that if God leads me somewhere, it's going to lead me all the way through. It won't be basically leading me to London and then prevent me from making friends. And so I stayed true to that principle of not joining friends to clubs and stuff, and knowing that I was going to make friends. And when that school year started, I had as a goal to basically focusing on just expressing love, being available to my friends and help them, and not focusing on being the best in my class. But when the first semester ended, a friend of mine came running down to me and was like, Christian, I saw your name on the, apparently we had a ranking system for students, and I saw your name on the top best 100 students at school, and your name is on it. I was like, what you talking about? And when I went with her up to the second floor to check the name, my name was among the top 5, and after that experience, I was basically able to make lots of friends. My name became known to the whole university. And, and in the end, by me being true to my own principle and knowing that God was leading me all the way, I was not deprived of anything. And later on, that boost that I received through that experience just made me comfortable of saying no to things that was not in line with Christian Science, because for me, Christian Science is a way of living. It's the principle that I apply in every single decision that I take. And that enabled me to make it through all those 3 years at university and achieving great results, not only academically, but also in all aspects of my personal life. So I really like to believe that my time in London really, really enabled me to strengthen my trust in God and in Christian Science.
In thinking about, gosh, what has meant the most to me in terms of Christian Science, I think for me it's the context of, because we all learn from experience, the context of my own experience in how the Christ met me in my life, with it, without. It's not like I was praying, or it's not like I was going somewhere or anything. It came to me, like it says in Science and Health, the Christ comes to the flesh to destroy incarnate error. And for me, I've always been somebody that has wanted to help people, a lot of trauma, in the world and everything, and wanting to effectively reach out to people. I used to write poetry in high school, but it was all so dark. Like I was trying to write something inspirational. It was really dark, and I'm like, okay, that's not helpful, But people loved it, but it was not what I was intending. And so for me, I was going to say something else before, but sitting here, I'm like, what means the most to me is how I was met by the actual science of the Christ before having the letter, because it gives me hope for the whole world. But I marked one quote that I think it just means so much to me. Let's see here. Where is it? The still small voice of truth. Yes. The still small voice of truth, of scientific thought, reaches over continent and ocean to the globe's remotest bound. The inaudible voice of truth is to the human mind as when a lion roareth. And it occurred to me once, what happens when a lion roars in the jungle? Silence. So I was like, oh, that's cool. We think of the roar, but no, silence in the jungle. So it is heard in the desert and in dark places of fear. It arouses the seven thunders of evil and stirs their latent forces to utter the full diapason of secret tones. Then is the power of truth demonstrated, made manifest in the destruction of error. And I love this. I didn't notice this until this morning. Then will a voice from harmony cry, go and take the little book, take it and eat it up, etc. So, I just love that the affirmation that this truth is is heard in the desert, it is heard in dark places of fear, and that the error is destroyed first. And then comes the instruction, take the little book. Anyway, so that's this moment's inspiration on that, so yeah.
I love that because it's so obvious that, those moments of growth and those just times in our lives when we're growing the most. First of all, it's so different for each one of us, but it happens in such unexpected ways sometimes. Like, I know for myself too, it's like there have been times where I've been kind of surrounded by Christian Scientists and then other times where I haven't. And I think the time that it was like the biggest growth for me was I was a Peace Corps volunteer in West Africa in this little village in a country called Togo, in a village that was all Muslim, and the nearest like phone was like a 2 or 3 hour bike ride away. So even like calling a practitioner would have been kind of like it would have been kind of a journey to get there and things like that. But I feel like that was like really, being away from everything where it really pushed me to, it's like, okay, like it's me and these ideas and God, and I have to put them into practice and let's see what happens, and it really kind of pushes you in ways, that you don't even expect, when you're kind of put in a situation to really make it your own. So I love all the things that you all shared and all the experiences. And another thing that's interesting too is just, the way that, we might explain Christian Science, whether it's like, okay, if you had to put like, what is Christian Science into your own words, to explain it to somebody else or just kind of like to be like, how would I explain it? We would all probably use kind of different words to explain it to somebody else. And actually that definition or how we would explain it might even shift and change, depending on where we are in life and what is really resonating with us. So just to maybe show kind of just highlight that how really individual and unique, first of all, our own relationship with Christian Science is and just, what about it resonates with us. I was wondering if you all could just share with us, what Christian Science is to you and how you would explain it in your own words.
For me, Christian Science is really a principle on how to be, on how to live life. And being a principle, it is the actions, the results, which matters most than the words. And for me, one time where I really saw it, the impact of, let's say, how when you are explaining what Christian Science is, when you yourself are reflecting it in your being and how that might sound appealing to those listening, was when I went, a friend of mine who is in this room right now, invited me for a dinner at her accommodation in Oslo, and Sten, and when we were with her friends, which were non-Christian scientists, and when they asked us where we met, so Stan said Christian Science, and then they asked Stan what Christian Science was. When Stan was explaining what Christian Science was, I was there just watching, and I just saw how she herself was really reflecting that joy and that love for what Christian Science was, and by explaining to her friends and how her friends just got so interested in listening, I told myself, wow, so this is how we really can reflect that science by not just words, but also just showing that love to it. And that inspired me later on as well. Every time people ask me, what is Christian Science to you, or what is your religion, that I really strive to be an ambassador, not only in my words, but in my well-being, basically. And whenever I do that, I feel like those listening really shows a huge level of interest, and we just end up, either I give them my sense in health, or either they too send me what they believe in, and the conversation keeps rolling, basically. And that's why I like to strive, and knowing that Christian Science is a principle, and as a principle, it's available for me, but also for other people.
Yeah, when thinking about this question, I was thinking about Christian is our nature, like the idea of the nature, and that has a law behind it. It's an active law that's present. It's an active nature that has a law behind it, which is love. And, Christian, you were making me think of I waited tables when I started studying Christian Science. And I've always been outgoing and friendly and everything. But it wasn't until I started studying Christian Science that people started asking, what else do you do? What else do you do? And what I would answer was, I would just say, I love Christian Science. And it would, we'd have these conversations. And it was interesting to me because I realized they were experiencing something. They were experiencing something that got their attention. And I think that's how it was for me. I wasn't interested in organized religion, but there was someone in meetings that I went to that I heard day after day, and I started saying, what is it about this woman? There was something about her, and I started being drawn. I remember one time I was sitting with my eyes closed listening to her, and it felt like my arms reached across the room to her, cartoon-like, It really felt like that. It was the funniest thing, We've seen Beetlejuice, right? So anyway, it was kind of felt like that, But it was like this spontaneous thing, and I was like, that's interesting. But and there was this reaching and growing towards this, and I knew it wasn't her, but when I started working with her one-on-one, somebody had given me a science and health in the group, and I started reading it. But, what was interesting too, though, she was going through a lot in her life. It could have looked like to herself, she was maybe not illustrating, Christian Science or whatever, but it was actually, and this is good guidance, it was actually the contrast in a way between what she was going through. And yet there was this rock solid something. And I literally saw a rock. And I had this image of the ocean waves and everybody going up and down on the waves. And I said, she's like this rock that's rising out of the water and she's not moved. There's something in her. It wasn't her. Something in her that wasn't moved. And that was Christian Science. So she was moved. She was, having a lot of tumult. But there was the Christ that was unmoved. And so that's good to know in our own lives that if we're going through things and we think, oh, I'm not being a transparency, no, people are seeing that unshakable foundation no matter what you seem to be going through. So, yeah.
Well, I like to think of Christian Science. A lot of times we identify it as a religion, or I've heard people define it as a lifestyle. And I think that it really goes beyond both of those, that it includes the church and a religion and a lifestyle. But Christian Science, being a science, explains man's relationship to God. And it has these laws of our being. And for me, I think that's the coolest part of it, that it's a science. We can study it, because in science, that's something you do with any kind of science. You study it. And you don't just study it, but you go out and you demonstrate it. And that's such a key thing for me, that we study it, we learn from it, we demonstrate it, and it tells us about our relationship to God and to our fellow man. And it's that truth that we can demonstrate, and that is always there for us, that always has the answer to whatever we're going through. And I think it's just, for me, it's really cool, it's really powerful that, it is that truth.
Thank you so much for sharing those ideas. We're going to give you all a chance to dig into this question a little bit, just in really small groups. I'm going to ask you all to just turn to the people, if you're sitting with friends, maybe turn to the person or the people behind you or in front of you, and just small groups of 3 or 4, but also just make sure nobody is left out of the little circles. So just make sure everybody's in a little group around you, but just sharing with each other, what is Christian Science to you? If you do want to just listen to others and not share, that's totally fine. It can be kind of pop-up sharing in the small groups, but I'm going to give you all just 5 minutes after they've given us kind of just sharing a little bit of their ideas and their experiences as an introduction, but now give you all the opportunity to have similar conversations with those around you. So what is Christian Science to you? We're to come back together. So just to wrap up whatever thought you're on. We're having a really good conversation up here. Okay. So, it sounds like there were a lot of really good ideas shared. And it's always awesome to be able to share between groups. So if anybody would like to just raise their hand and pop up and just share either something that resonated with them and what you all were talking about in your group, or something that you might have shared. We have people with microphones throughout the auditorium, so feel free to just pop up, because I don't think I'm going to see like people's hands. But what is Christian Science to you? Yes.
I'll just keep this short. We're talking about kind of cumulatively our ideas. We're saying that Christian Science is intuition. It's more than a lifestyle. It's more than a religion. It's just intuition.
Yeah, that's cool. Excellent. And thanks for being the first one.
Thank you. Yeah, an idea that I gleaned from actually the panel and I shared with the group is that Christian Science is not just something that, we do just to go to church, or, my parents did it, so I'll do it, okay, cool. Or, it's not just a religion, and when the going gets tough, at least I have Jesus, right? Like, it's actually a lot more than that, guys. Like, we're actually living this life to thrive, not just to get by. We're not just sitting here and hoping things are good. Like, we know things are good, and we're here to demonstrate it. And it's awesome. So I think that's why we're here, and that's what Christian Science is. So bless. Yeah, thank you.
Bless.
I just wanted to comment that one of the panelists said that really stuck to us and we spoke about is that it's about results. It's not theoretical. A couple of us in the group have grown up in other faiths and other churches and places of worship, and it's result-wise, so it's fierce, it's potent, and we need to remember that. So just wanted to say that.
Yes, in the back. We've got to your right. Yes.
One thing that we talked about in our group, and actually what I commented that I've heard with a lot of people our age, is that I was raised in Christian Science and then I made it my own. I hear that all the time. And in our group, we were talking about one way that we've made it our own is that it's a way of looking at other people, and how Christian Science just changes our perspective or perception of other people, and that it's, I guess, kind of a mindset. So that's kind of what we talked about.
I remember somebody sharing with me once that, it's like there's no theology of the other in Christian Science. It's not like, oh, Christian Scientists, or this is the truth about Christian Scientists, and then there are other people, and that truth is not true for them too. Like, there's no concept of kind of the other, which I thought was really interesting. Yes, you got a microphone coming behind you.
Thanks. So in our group, we talked a lot about how Christian Science is about living love, so similar to a lot of what other people have said. But also one thing that's been really popping out to me recently is it's about recognizing the completeness of God's creation as already present. And that has just been so powerful for me recently.
Thank you. We have time for one more. Somebody wants to pop up. Where do we? Oh, sorry, over there. Here we go. You can always feel free to just wave, flail.
To me, thinking about what Christian Science means to me, the first thing that came to mind was the concept of freedom. So many places when we look, especially outside of the Christian Science community, there's beliefs of fatigue, beliefs of declining energy, declining athletic performance or intelligence, or whatever kind of disease or need for prescription medicine, all those kind of things. And Christian Science gives us the complete freedom from all of those things to look past whatever limitation might appear into limitless energy, limitless joy, and into the Christ idea that is complete freedom. And that's what Christian Science, I think, really means to me.
Excellent. Very good. Well, thank you all so much, and thanks to our panelists for getting this conversation started. I'm just going to really quickly run you through what is going to happen next. We're going into our breakout groups next. You'll see in your program the list of breakouts. I think there are about 10 or 15 breakouts. They will be offered twice, so each round will be 45 minutes. So you'll go and find your session that you're interested in, and then you'll get to choose a second session. So just to go over them. There's nurturing healthy relationships. There's relationships with those of other faiths and perspectives. That is really relationships, not just kind of romantic relationships, but also work relationships, colleagues, friendships, navigating those conversations, navigating those relationships with people who are from other faiths and perspectives, finding that deeper sense of connection, uplifting marriage and family, navigating transitions in life. The next one is from burnout to balance. Then there's identifying spiritually. The next two are kind of similar. One is finding a deeper sense of purpose. So if you kind of feel like, hey, I'm on this career path, but I really want to really feel like I'm not just on a career path, but what is my deeper sense of purpose, regardless of kind of what I'm doing kind of in my life? What is my path? If you're just like, I have no idea what my path is, and I'm still thinking and praying about that. Finding a sense of community, really how to, with everybody moving around, changing jobs, families moving, things like that, how can we really develop that deeper sense of community? Making spiritual growth a priority. Moral courage, encountering societal influences, and then raising kids with confidence in Christian Science. You'll see that the breakouts have numbers, and there are numbers in the map in your program. For 1 through 5, so you guys are going to go out that way. Everybody else, if you go out that way, it'll be better, and there'll be people, ushers, that are telling you where to go and things like that. TMCO is where we are right now. So you'll think about what 2 you want to go to. If you show up at a breakout and it's completely packed, you might want to go to your second choice, what you were going to go to second, and then come back to that one for the second round. After these, there will be lunch over at 12:30 at 235 Huntington, and then we will be back in this room right at 2 p.m. So we will see you all at 2 p.m. Any questions, come up front.